So in today's argument analysis, I'm going to look at whether or not haydurnation is a bunch of mean bullies that really just aim to destroy and conquer the world through mean reactions to Amberlynn, Reid, and Foodie. So in the simplest of summaries, this community, haydurnation, is a bunch of reactors that react to specifically Amberlynn, Reid, and Foodie. And in turn, there are anti-haters who have formed just to react to the reactors reacting to Amberlynn, Reid, and Foodie. Yes, this is a real genre. Yes, this is very serious. And not only that, this is popular AF. So if all of these names are entirely new to you and you have no idea who Amberlynn, Reid, and Foodie are, then I would highly recommend that you watch the video linked below, which is basically a comprehensive documentary style video on the entirety of haydurnation and whether or not they're hypocrites. This video will be an argument that Jasmine the sequel made, one of the reactors in this community, where she tries to argue that haydurnation is not a bunch of bullies. I just want to dissect that argument and see what's going on. Now, people in and around this community are very serious about picking a side, and you have to pick a side, and if you do not make your side very well known, very explicit, then you
are a disrespectful piece of shit.
So, I just want to make it very clear from the get-go that I support every single part of this mad place because it's actual pure enjoyment. I don't belong to or vouch for any side. I'm not glued up enough. I just like watching the shit show, and this pit is limitless. So if you hate this creator specifically, please acknowledge that she's got a very lovely voice and it makes editing a lot easier. And also just keep in mind that this video is a little bit old and she might have changed her opinions and might have different takes on it at this point. Like, as per usual, this is an argument analysis, so I'm not arguing against or for whatever takes. I'm literally looking at the argument, taking it at face value, and pinpoint the fallacies so that we can see whether or not this argument holds up in its own right. So I'm just going to make it very clear, I do not condone any form of harassment. That is some low-grade bullshit. I do not support it. If you have hate that you need to send out into this world, drop it in my comment section. I could really use the engagement. That would be dope. Okay, let's get into it.
Amberlynn and Chantal are both essentially very obese women on the internet, and they primarily do mukbangs. Now, that's not the reason that I talk about them. Their weight is not the reason that I talk about them. I talk about them because they are people who have a troubled history with eating the way that I do, and the way that they seem to be dealing with it is by monetizing their eating addiction and putting it online.
Okay, so here Jasmine has established relatability and similarity and context with regards to the issue of weight, saying that, okay, ALR and Foodie are both overweight, so therefore overweight reactors share some similar experiences. But do they really experience the same online presence and reaction from all types of viewers? I mean, if you are the subject of reaction channels versus being a reaction channel, I'm sure the audience that you garner is much different. It's the same difference as saying laugh with me and laughing at me. I'm not sure how the weight of it all relates to similar online experiences in that regard, but if we take it in a different light, saying that okay, they are both overweight so they both know the struggles, well then that would mean that the criticisms and the reactions that you provide are limited to only weight related topics, but most creators do not talk about the weight of it all. Alternatively, you could be referring to the fact that since you are as a reactor overweight and you are reacting to somebody overweight, then maybe you can share pointers, in which case that would mean absolutely nothing if you have not lost the weight yourself. Or you could be referring to sympathy, as in I know what you're going through because I too am overweight. Then again, you have the problem of not being online with regards to your weight, but instead being as a channel to react to other people who are overweight. So I don't understand how being overweight makes you more of a bully in this specific context.
Both Amberlynn and Chantal like to accuse us, all the haters, of being bullies, which confuses me. Is it a little bit mean, maybe, to talk about people? Okay, maybe. Our criticisms may be a little bit harsh. Maybe you are right about that. I think that's subjective. but they're public figures. I hate to say this, but it unfortunately comes with the territory of being on YouTube.
Okay, this argument here is very convoluted because it's actually two arguments made in one go. This is often employed so that an easy, provable, and agreeable point can distract from a less agreeable, less clear argument. So in the first instance, she's making a distinction between some haters versus all haters, as in some haters might be mean, but not all of us. So she's creating a distance between herself and the rest of the hater community. This is important. Please remember this part. Secondly, she's saying that, well, whether or not all of us, some of us, or none of us are bullies, or it doesn't matter, because regardless of that, they are public figures, i.e. they get to experience meanness on the internet and bullying on the internet. So if the second point is then valid, that they're public figures and therefore it doesn't matter how they get treated, then why even bring up the first point of some haters are mean and some are not?
Both Chantal and Amberlynn have at various points in their YouTube career and overall life expressed a lot of behaviors that one would consider bullying. For example, Chantal has mocked somebody for having a long nose, threatened to call Child Protective Services on someone, cheated on her fiance, then broke up with him. There's a lot.
Okay, so here she's not necessarily saying that ALR and Foodie Booty are worse, but rather that at the very least they are the same with regards to being mean or bullies. Thereby, ALR and Foodie Booty calling out bullying would be hypocritical.
Amberlynn, meanwhile, has misgendered somebody on purpose, by the way. It's been pointed out to her multiple times, has engaged in many acts of casual animal cruelty, has I'm not 100% sure if she cheated on.
Oh yeah, fuck. Okay, I take that back. Obviously, she's saying that ALR and Foodie Booty are worse in the bully discussion. Okay, this is a problem because imagine that you're in a courtroom and a murderer is pleading not guilty because at least I'm not a serial killer, guys. I only murdered one person. It's not that bad. At least I did not murder 5 people. Yeah, nah. If you done goofed, you done goofed. It doesn't matter if you're more or less on the goofiness. If your whole argument is that you're not a bully, you have to qualify that position, not saying, well, other people are worse. You don't have to be more extreme or less extreme if you are on the scale.
Something that a bully would do. And I don't want anyone coming at me and saying that cheating is not a form of bullying. I would have to very, very carefully say I very highly disagree. I think cheating is done by extremely terrible people.
Yeah, no, I'm coming for this one. So cheating can be done by the most vile person on this planet. It still doesn't mean that it has the same definition as the term bullying. Other vile and horrible things that do not qualify as bullying include murder, white-collar crime, parking in a disabled spot, and not liking this video.
Despite engaging in this kind of behavior individually, they both seem to think that the only reason people criticize them is for the clout, so that they can build channels off of their names. Including, by the way, people like Tom Harlock and Primmick. So, no, it's not actually true. That's a very infantile understanding of what criticism actually is.
So here we have another issue of mixing multiple arguments into one to make it seem as if it's carrying more validity. So first issue that comes up is whether or not ALR and Foodie Booty's names brings the clicks and the clout. And yes, 100% can we not lie to each other here? It does. Your channel, as an example, as we can see, if we sorted just by most popular, we can see that definitely not only do they do that, but at least 90% of your content is based around them, and that is the reason why people come to your channel specifically. This is true of many reaction channels. That's kind of the niche, that's what people are going for, and I don't even think there's anything wrong with it, but denying the role of these two creators in your channel formation and the goal of your channel, well, I mean, that's just a bold-faced lie, ain't it? Ain't it? Come on. I also know that people clicked on this video for the exact same reason. That's okay. I'm at peace with it. The second thing is when she brings in Primmick and Tom Harlock as examples in the Haydurnation community. Now, it's very important to know that these two creators had found notoriety and clout prior to making any videos about Amberlynn, and you can't just be a part of Haydurnation simply by making a video on this specific topic. It's very much a niche, it's a community, and you have to both associate with the community and the community has to accept you in it. That's kind of true of all the communities, so I think it's very unfair to label them as haters within the community if they themselves do not state that they are within the community. And I think just by checking out their most popular videos, it was very, very clear that this was not the reason why people came to their channels. This was more of a extra bonus side effect of being subscribed. I totally do agree though with what she said here about not confusing criticism and hate. I think many creators do confuse that. I think people can be cruel and say horrible things. So I definitely think that she has more validity there. I just want to add that when the same criticism is echoed through more people or less people, it doesn't make that criticism in itself more or less valid.
Most of the creators that I have seen talking about them are just, they're making jokes, okay? They're poking a little bit of fun. Yeah, maybe the jokes are a little mean-spirited and maybe they push it a little bit too far, but they are essentially just making jokes at Amber and Chantal's expense. And I'm sorry, but if you are a public figure, which is what they are, you have to expect that.
Okay, this is a very, very sneaky response you got here, girlfriend. I mean, okay, so you acknowledge that mean and hurtful behavior do come from the reaction channels, but simultaneously, you're distancing yourself from it. And then also you are saying that they're public figures, so it's fine. The problem here is specifically with regards to your argument that Haydurnation in itself is not a bullying entity, but you are instead not arguing that point. You are arguing that whether or not Haydurnation is a bunch of bullies, it doesn't matter since these two are public figures. So does that lead us to conclude that Haydurnation is a bunch of bullies or not? Because you're saying, well, it doesn't matter if we're bullies or not, you get what you get.
I don't think that anyone is above reproach. But much unlike the anti-haters, I think a lot of the haters aren't actually coming from a place of bullying. And let me explain why I think that. A bully is a person who seeks to harm someone who they perceive as vulnerable. Criticism is the expression of disapproval of someone or something based on a perceived fault or mistake.
Ah, yes, daddy. Nothing gets me as excited as a fucking clear definition of concepts. Okay, so just remember, keep a pin in this moment. Bullying requires perceived vulnerability and criticism requires perceived mistakes. Important, everybody got their notebooks out? Okay, let's motherfucking go.
So, anti-haters, people like Peanut, for example, and honestly the Gaining Ground as well. A lot of their rhetoric seems to come down to just pure faffery. I don't like you because I don't like you. I don't like you because you don't like me. I don't like you because you're Jewish. I don't like you because you are Charlie Cole. Right? That is bullying. That is, I would say that is not an acceptable way to behave. Even if it doesn't reach the level of bullying, it's definitely not criticism. Criticism would be telling Chantal that, hey, you were saying you've got IBS and you're going to get all these expensive tests done, but you haven't tried any of the other things that could potentially resolve your problem, like not eating like 4 pounds of cheese when you don't have a gallbladder.
For this specific type of argument, using terms like most and a lot is problematic because your goal is to prove in this entire debate that Haydurnation or reaction channels as a whole are not bullying ALR and Foodie Booty. So in order to do that, you cannot say that most of us are actually nice while most of a third party are actually the real bullies. That brings nothing in terms of proof to the debate. Instead, argue why the notion of reaction in and of themselves do not qualify as bullying. Most people could get behind that point since there's a ton of reactors on YouTube who would never be called bullies. By saying that another group is the real bullies, you're saying that there might be bad actors in every community, which is true, but it's true of your community as well. Thus, you're saying nothing. This point is saying nothing.
One of the biggest tenets of it being bullying is whether or not a person is perceived as being vulnerable. Chantal loves to say that because she is obese, she's not a protected class, but she should be. And because she's obese, people mock her. But a lot of the reactors, myself included, are people who are in that sort of realm. And more to the point, I think Charlie Gold and On Program Situation, two of the bigger voices in this movement, are actually people who've been morbidly obese themselves and have suffered the consequences. So if you're talking about punching down, I don't think that makes any sense.
So the problem isn't actually any of the qualities of the reactors themselves. In fact, that is actually entirely irrelevant. The reason is because you are in the role of a reactor, not the subject of the reaction. In other words, the playing field is not level. So if you called ALR a fat fuck weekly, and she called you a fat fuck weekly, then your argument, your own weight and flaws matter. But that's not the case here. This is exactly the same type of reasoning as saying, I can't be racist since I have a black friend. Like, nah fam, nah, you can't relate.
Charlie might have a bigger channel, but it's not that much bigger than Chantal, and it's significantly smaller than Amberlynn's. And On Program Situation's channel is significantly smaller than all the other creators there, right? All three of them have significantly larger followings than OPS has. So they're not punching down. If anything, they're punching at their level, or in Val's situation, she's punching up. Chantal and Amber, however, frequently punch down. So Chantal will go into the comment section of smaller channels, post to smaller channels, and ask her massive YouTube following of 81,000 people to go harass, report, and bully them off the platform. She's already done that.
Okay, this is one of the most interesting points in the entire argument. It's the idea of punching down based on platform size. Now, normally, and with most creators, their subscriber base would indicate some kind of influence or power that they actually have on the YouTube sphere or on social media as a whole. However, the size of haydurnation is so extensive, with so many active participants as key role players in reactions, in Twitter sphere, in the YouTube, on Kiwi Farm. It's haydurnation in itself is massive, and I think it largely envelops the entire platform base of ALR and Foodie Booty with regards to actual support. Even if we were to say that 100% of ALR and Foodie Booty subscriber base is completely and utterly, totally supporters, well, this is not a 1v1 competition. Remember, it will never be ALR versus Jasmine the sequel. It'll be ALR versus Haydurnation. Always. The whole community, in fact, of Haydurnation has each other's back. That is kind of one of the cool things about this community, is that it's very unwavering and undying in its passion to react to these two women. So for that reason, it'll never be equal in that sense. This is a Clash of Clans, not a 1v1 battle, and if we care about platform size, if that is important, then Haydurnation is actually at a massive advantage.
That's punching down. Calling somebody's face stew, that's punching down. Saying that she has 10th size underwear, that's punching at your level. I'm sorry, but the bigger you get, the harder the punches come. Amberlynn does this very same thing. She made that false rape accusation against Casey, and then she also had another time where she accused her aunt of being fatphobic and stopped talking to her because she was fat. Both of these people don't have a platform where they can get on and defend themselves. So she's essentially punching down at people because she thinks that they won't notice that she's doing it.
Bullying bullies does not reduce the amount of bullies, and it certainly doesn't prove that Haydurnation is not bullying the girls.
Fat on fat crime.
I'm sure that if and when Chantal and Amber become aware of my channel, they're going to think of me as being a bully. They're going to think that I'm cyberbullying them, despite the fact that I'm a significantly smaller channel, and as to date, I have made little to no money. Actually, I don't know why I'm saying little. I have made no money as of now based on them at all. I'm purely doing this because I want to. But that's not how they're going to see it. And if they ever put me on blast in front of their audience, a lot of whom are still fans, and the fans come after me, they're going to think of that as being, well, I was just defending myself, not realizing that as a much smaller channel, they are in fact punching down, whereas I'm punching significantly up. Most of us have significantly less reach, less power, less resources than both of these ladies have to their disposal.
Yeah, see the previous point. Okay, look, I just want to make it very clear that I don't think there's anything inherently unethical with regards to reacting to anyone or making multiple videos on the same person. I don't think that in itself is a problem. I think it's more a matter of being an unethical person or an ethical person and then putting that online. So I would have rather that she focused on that rather than trying to prove or argue that other people are worse or that her channel is too tiny to contribute to bullying.
So they're not vulnerable. Maybe they think they are because of their fat, but no, most of us are fat too. If anything, I would say that cancels each other out. Don't you think?
Ooh, remember that earlier definition I got all wet over? Yeah, so bullying requires perceived vulnerability, but that's not synonymous with subjective vulnerability. In other words, there are many ways in which somebody can be a victim with bullying regardless of being mocked over physical attributes or even platform size. For example, mental health, right? So sometimes things also hit harder when they come from somebody who you share similarities with instead of some random stranger that you don't know. So if my mother tells me that I'm wearing an ugly dress, that means significantly more to me than if a random stranger posts about it on Instagram. And I think it's because of perceived similarities between me and my mother, right? It's with her, it could just be fatness as well, you know? So sharing that point might actually make it worse. And I already debunked the whole platform size argument, so I think it's very plausible to say that people can be vulnerable in multiple different ways. And I think that this line of reasoning, it does not completely eliminate the idea of vulnerability, as that argument wasn't debunked through Jasmine's reasoning here.
Where we are giving them a free pass for bad behavior. A lot of what Amberlynn and Chantal do is not particularly egregious. They haven't like murdered anybody or, for example, walked through a Japanese suicide forest and filmed the dead body. That being said, it doesn't mean that their behavior is understandable or excusable or even forgivable. They display some really terrible behavioral. In the case of Chantal, I would say that that's definitely racism, and apparently we can add transphobia to that mix. In the case of Amberlynn, I would definitely say animal cruelty is one of those things. So not talking about it, not holding them responsible, just allows them, it enables them to get away with this.
So what she's saying here is that criticism should be allowed because there are other non-fat lolcow issues at hand. And I totally agree. Everyone, especially YouTubers, can and should be criticized, right? Now, saying the same 5 things over and over through more and more people while acting like we're talking about murder when in fact we're talking about an egg allergy might not be the way, son. But despite that, I think this is a pretty solid point. I'm gonna give it to you, girl.
Especially because they are profiting off of this terrible behavior.
Okay, so here the line of reasoning that follows is that they are not vulnerable in the bully definition, since they are not only choosing to be lolcows, but they're also gaining monetarily from it. This is perhaps the most convincing argument as to prove that they're not being bullied, since it is objectively true that both ALR and Foodie Booty can opt out if they choose, and they do not. This must mean that whatever backlash or bullying they're experiencing online is worth it to them. This is a solid point. If you choose to stay in any position that you can easily move away from, then it can be accepted by any onlookers or outsiders that you are in fact giving tacit consent, which means that you low-key, high-key kind of approve of the whole situation. Okay, so she hasn't proven that bullying does not occur, but rather that whether or not it occurs, the girls have agreed, they have given consent, they are here for it.
That Chantal and Amber have thrown their way is 100% fair. But a lot of the bigger channels, from what I have seen, don't talk about her weight so much anymore. I don't think I've really ever mentioned their weight outside of how it might negatively impact their health. I don't poke fun at them. I don't call their names. I've never, made fat jokes at their expense. I don't do that shit.
So I really like that she knows her own ethical boundaries and that she states them and she's clear about them. But logically speaking, you can't be a part of the group in times when it's convenient, such as, adding Tom Harlock and Primming into the mix when you say we don't chase clout. But then you're only talking about yourself when the whole community is criticized as being mean, bullying, and saying I don't make fun of their weight. So you have to pick an approach and be consistent with it. So either you are talking to the whole Haydur Nation haydurnation community or just individually about yourself. So then question changes from, is haydurnation bullying Amberlynn, Reid and Foodie Beauty to, am I bullying Chantel and Amberlynn? This entire argument, we are flip-flopping between these two stances, and I think if you just clarified what position you are defending, then it would be a lot easier to pinpoint the actual arguments being made.
I talk about them because I think they're problematic. I talk about them because I think that they're glorifying a lifestyle that will lead people to ill health and eventually death. That's why I talk about them. I talk about them and I criticize them because I started off as a fan and I've become disillusioned. And I think that I'm well within my rights to do so. And I don't think I'm bullying them. And I kind of think that the definition of the words bully and criticism agree with me.
So this is her conclusive opinion, and she's totally well within her right to have this opinion. I won't challenge it. I won't try to change her stance on it. She is perfect fucking a-okay to have this position. My opinion, instead, is that these are lol cows. So if you're not laughing and enjoying the content and the shit show that you're seeing, then you're probably missing out and taking things far too seriously. I mean, if you want to do that, go ahead. I just think this shit is funny and I am here to have a good fucking time. But in the end of the day, I'm just a thought with an opinion and I don't know shit about fuck. Peace